Hi there. I'm Deacon John Wilson, Education Enrichment Director for West Angeles Church, here with the most important presentation for you as a student who's preparing to go to college or a parent who's looking on. This is probably one of my most important sessions, which is why I'm recording it live on YouTube for you to see it. If you hear from my program and you want to get credit for attending this or let me know you attended, look in the comment window, write down that you're here and what time you're watching this and what date, and then when you leave, the time and date, and we'll give you credit for seeing this session. It is really important. The session is going to talk about a very important aspect of your college life. Now, we all want to go away to college and have college positively affect us. But if you got to work at that, and you got to make sure that the influence of college don't change you in a way that you don't want to see it change you for college. There are going to be some faith-based portions of this and some portions, frankly, that are true. Absolutely. I think people who are not religious could definitely understand the things I'm saying here, because society is changing a lot and you really need to work at not letting college influence you adversely while you're at college. So with no further ado, I want to start. Let's get that done right now. All right. All righty. This was our 20th meeting for class of 2022. And we had it on Saturday, which was yesterday. And I'm going to share with you a top important aspect of college life first, which is political ideology. Right now, our nation is definitely divided between left and right in ways that are very divisive in our country, but really it's only a small part of the country doing that. I've considered up here, wanted to show you left, liberal, people that are not aligned either way are represented here, conservative and right. 70 to 75% of colleges really are left or liberal in their perspective, and their professors, you can see that 65 to 75% of college professors of arts, communities, and humanities are going to be left or liberal. 85 to 95% of college professors are in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, tend to be conservative or liberal. Very, very few are left. We're going to talk about what left is in just a moment. And again, this presentation is not going to really be political, but I wanted you to know the political ideology of the campus. And then we can talk about what left means, because that's where a lot of your professors are going to be of that ideology. And I want to make sure you're not surprised by that, because it shocks a lot of my college students. I should mention that this year, again, when students come back from college, I'm talking to them and interviewing them. I've talked to 18 of them at this point. And a lot of them brought up this presentation and said, it's good that I covered this. They remembered it while they were in college. Even second-year students are telling me that. And again, this is coming from a non-political perspective, just to let you know what's really happening. I think I didn't mention that Protestant Christian colleges are pretty much here, but that's no surprise. Some of you are wondering what leftism means. I don't know if I'm defining it here. I wanted to stay away from that, but I'm definitely covering some of the main things that even people on the left would agree. Remember, I think liberals and left are different. A person can be liberal, as you saw from this, and not be a part of left ideology at all. But a lot of your college professors are, if you look at these arrows here. Leftism definition, this is not liberalism or libertarianism. They're very different. It's really egalitarianism, equal success for all, equal outcomes and rights for all, as opposed to equal opportunity. So they want equal outcomes for all. All should have equal outcomes, and then the rights, outcomes and rights, as opposed to equal opportunity. Like our program, for example, we want to help students get equal opportunities to be successful. I really can't promise that everybody will be a millionaire or everybody will do really well, but I can promise that I'll get them prepared. I get you prepared to be there. What you do with it is going to be up to you. And then that's where it becomes interesting, I think, what you can get done. And if you're spiritual about this, what God can do through you. Here's another example of leftism. Gender is a social construct. Both sexes are the same. Marriage is just two people. Gender is fluid. And that's where the controversy comes up today. What is a woman? I believe that's a big thing I'm seeing on social media. Some people don't want to define what a woman is, but I do. I think a woman is a female who has an XX chromosome. And I'm concerned that some of the trends in society are moving us to have many definitions of what a woman is. But that's not why we're doing this. I'm doing this just to define to you, give you an idea of what leftism is. Gender is fluid and not biological. Facebook says there's 58 or maybe it's 56 genders. Each has a specific number code, it turns out. Opposition to social hierarchy and constructs is a part of what leftism is about. That's why the opposition to the 1% of people or 2% or whatever it is, maybe 3 that are, quote, rich, however you define it. There's an opposition to that idea of social hierarchy and income hierarchy and structures and constructs. There's opposition to organized religion, therefore, especially Christianity, which they feel is a social construct. And they would hold that people who are Christian religious are, not favorable to the things the way they see America. And again, not liberals. Liberals are very open-minded in their thought, I find. We just maybe disagree on a few things. Sometimes people disagree back and forth, liberal to conservative, but I think leftism is different because sometimes both conservatives and liberals agree that things have gone too far. Now, you're seeing that today in the news, when people who are against, well, we'll talk about it a little more later. Hatred of conservatives is a big part of leftists. Again, they're liberals who don't really hate conservatives, but there are people on the left that certainly do. And there are conservatives, I suppose, that hate people on the left, but we're talking about college professors who are leftists. You're not going to run into too many conservative college professors. And when you do, they're not going to be really able to be hateful. Socialism is a form of leftism. Socialism is not just being more social, though, my friends. It's a form of control, centralized control by the government over a society. It's a form of that. Anyway, I don't want to get too deep into it, but socialism is a big part of leftism. See, I'm being nice. Some people think it's Marxism. I don't think so. Some leftists are inclined to Marxism. I'm aware of that. But mainstream leftism, if there were that, they would probably say they're more socialist. Leftism is total opposition to capitalism. They just really don't believe in that principle. I do. I believe that you're learning gifts and talents to be able to sell them to society. So in that sense, I think capitalism is a good thing, but any good thing can be evil if it's used wrong. I think you agree with that. And, but that's not what this view graph's about. It's just trying to get you to know how to recognize leftism on your campus. And again, my students in college are so glad that I tell them this, because I don't want you to get a professor who's a leftist, and I don't want you to get upset, is what I'm saying. I want you to be able to learn from that professor without that professor controlling your values in your life, because professors are very persuasive individuals. Finally, on leftism, there's a high support for abortion. Actually, I would say it's unrestricted abortion on the left. There are a lot of liberals that are in favor of abortion with restrictions, whether it's just a number of months or whatever. The question is whether you favor unrestricted abortion. There was a recent vote in the Senate where some 47, 48 senators voted for a federal law to allow unrestricted abortion, which means all the way up to the 8th and 9th month. And I think most Americans are uncomfortable with it. They want some kind of restriction on abortion. But there are many leftists that feel there should be no restriction on abortion at all. Again, liberals are a little different, maybe. I mean, there may be some liberals that feel it should be unrestricted, but I don't think it's fair to say that liberal people want to have unrestricted abortion. Most that I know want to see some restrictions. I know, in fact, I know some liberals that want to see, no abortion after 2 months. I've heard that before. And by the way, I do also challenge people who are conservative. I don't think conservatives, when they say that no abortion is it should be no abortion. This is a difficult issue, but if a woman is raped and gets pregnant, I think that's a personal decision. I think also too, if there's going to be health problems for the mother. So even people who are pro-life need to really look at and inspect themselves and look at this issue of unrestricted abortion, or even the other extreme of no abortion at all. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that, but I thought I'd bring it up. This is to give you an idea what leftism believes, and they would definitely believe in unrestricted abortion. In fact, a lot of them would say that it's racist to restrict abortion in any way. Now, regarding the Dobbs Supreme Court case and the leaked opinion that has rocked the world here, there was an opinion leaked that looked like they're going to strike down Roe versus Wade. So I thought I'd take a second and go through this, because we are talking about an issue when you hit the campus. It's going to be hot, because sometime this month, we're going to see a decision on the Dobbs case, which will determine whether the Supreme Court will drop or cut its ties with an earlier decision on Roe versus Wade. Excuse me. So we'll see that decision this month, and by the time you get to campus, it's probably going to be a very hot issue. I just don't want to see you getting involved in demonstrations and getting all upset without knowing the issues. And the issue really is, again, unrestricted abortion. The Dobbs case, so let's go through this. The Dobbs case, majority opinion was leaked 2 months ago. It's led to violence and a national abortion debate and threats to the justices, judges, justices, whatever, and protests at their homes. In fact, if Roe versus Wade is overturned, the abortion law becomes a state matter, state by state. It will not make abortion illegal in the predominant majority of states. In fact, we have only one state that is considering or has, when you read the fine print of their law, a full ban on abortion. Like here in California, I don't think it will affect anything. Here in California, pretty much it's unrestricted. There's no state law against it. That won't change if Roe versus Wade is overturned. In most states, it won't. Just about all states, it won't be. There may be some rules on when you can have an abortion, and that may happen. And of course, each state will have to decide. Some may relax their rules. Some may make it a little tighter, because it's up to the state if Roe versus Wade is overturned. Students just back from college tell me that the professors even did lessons and spent many days stating that pro-life Christians were ruining the nation. And you got to know that I'm a man of God. I don't like or agree with that opinion at all. Here's an opinion. I'll tell you that much. One does not need to be religious to oppose unrestricted abortion. In fact, I know non-religious people that do not support unrestricted abortion. The politics of abortion have even Christian believers saying that the pro-life position is racist. Yeah, they even believers in churches that have made this a race issue. And I don't really see it as a race issue at all. Whether you believe that it's a matter of life or not, life, the fetus being alive, human life or not, that's not the purpose of this. It's just to tell you what you're expecting to see when you get to campus. I'm really focusing on viewpoints that may differ from what your parents might have taught you. Let's talk about race in college life. Critical race theory, what is it really? It's a big part of college campus life now, and a lot of the curriculum of colleges, and certainly in the freshman coursework. I'll say more about that in a minute. We're going to look at a week in the life of Peter really quick, some terminology, racism versus systemic racism, definitions, history, and origin. CRT and ethnic studies are becoming a dominant part of freshman university required classes. This is coming as a result of, in response to the Floyd murder. Two most important Black role models are these days are Martin Luther King and Frederick Douglass, I think. And you're seeing a lot of attacks, my students tell me, on their images and their background. And those two, Martin Luther King and Frederick Douglass, are under attack a lot more on campus these days. Again, I'm not taking a position. I just want you to know what you might hear when you get to campus. I said I would cover a week in the life of Peter. It really is just a couple of days. Cornelius, a Roman centurion, was led by God to summon Peter, actually. It's not Paul. At this time, it was thought by Peter, okay, that the truth of Jesus was meant only for Jews. This is prior to Paul. So please note that it should be Peter there. The vision from God in a dream, it's something I need to talk about. I'll just paraphrase in verses 13 to 15 of Acts 10. In a vision, he sees animals coming down from the sky that are not to be eaten by Jewish people. They're not, we'd say kosher, but they're animals that are not allowable to be consumed. And a voice comes and says, "Rise, Peter, kill and eat." And of course, Peter did not want to do that, and it bothered him. These are unclean animals in his dream. But then in verse 15, it says, "What God has cleansed, you must not call common." So we know this is a call for Peter to reach out to the Gentiles and accept Gentiles into the Christian faith. And now you know today that nearly everyone is a Gentile in Christianity now. So Peter travels to Cornelius, and Peter realizes, verse 28, "I should not call any man common or unclean." Cornelius summoned him is what happened. "I perceive that God shows no partiality," verse 34. There's no partiality. God doesn't show any partiality between ethnicities, is the point of this. Believers should not be impressed by any old doctrine and theory in society or race does not comport with God, about society or race does not comport with God. God didn't have any respect of persons. So if we have a theory like CRT that says because you're Black or because you're white, there's a certain role and relationship, one's oppressed and one's an oppressor. I'll talk about that in a minute. Non-believers should be concerned about how illogical dividing the races really is. Let's look at some of those definitions. We have the concept of the oppressor, also called a supremacist. All whites and whites are in power are called supremacists. You see that word thrown around a lot. Even just 5 to 7 years ago, a supremacist was a Nazi or someone like that. But now it's sort of become that all whites are supremacists. More and more you're hearing that on the college campus. Please be aware of that. The concept of people being oppressed, just because of your skin color, Black, Indigenous, people of color. So Black people, Latinos, Black and brown are oppressed. Of course, women and LGBT are oppressed too, according to that. And there's a whole other type of critical theory going on there. But critical race theory would hold that Blacks are oppressed and whites are the oppressor. And of course, that that I don't agree that any of you as Black youth are oppressed. You have the ability to succeed above and beyond any type of favor or what they call it, privilege that a white person would. I don't accept that we have to define our success based on white success at all. Anti-racist. One could even whites who openly and actively oppose the oppressor. So even white people can state their opposition to the oppressor, and that would be an anti-racist. If a person it's not enough to say, "I'm not a racist." You have to do things in your power through policies and practices to actively oppose racism, or else you're actually a racist. You're not really anti-racist. Systemic racism says that America is racist through and through everywhere, and Blacks cannot succeed with the oppressor in power. So it's not just saying that, racist. It's saying that society is totally racist and that Black people can't really succeed or need help succeeding. It's not totally clear, but racism can hold you back. And of course, I don't agree with that. I think that or I wouldn't really be doing what I'm doing. I believe you can succeed. If you get yourself educated, stay with God, and ask Him to show you what you're to do. And said another way, if you pursue your goals, you're in a free country, you're going to make it. In fact, any white person that would be racist or is found to be racist, really their careers and lives are ruined. Okay, also, the belief in CRT carries with it the idea of a cancel culture. And of course, that's something unique to the left, but you also see it on the right. Anyone not a part of anti-racism should be canceled. So the cancel culture in social media and other places is extremely active. Even big tech is into that. The appropriation of Black culture should be canceled. So appropriation of Black culture is a problem too, that we hear a lot about. If you ever want to see something that will totally inspire you, watch High on the Hog on Netflix, episode 4. I'd give some time strikes there. By the way, if you want a copy of this presentation, just email me or indicate in the comments and I'll send you one. Give me your email address. We are Americans. We are part of America. That's what you learn when you're looking at High on the Hog. It's a specific aspect of us, and it's and the effect that Black Americans in history have had on food in this country. And that's huge. We've had a tremendous effect in the culture, and food is a great example of it. It's really a wonderful example. You really should watch that. And it's a good way of concluding that we are Americans. We're part of America. Equity. Equality is equality of outcome, like I said earlier, not just equality of opportunity. There are some today that believe that if there's not the same amount or proportionate amount actually of Blacks and Hispanics, Black and brown and all ethnicities succeeding, equivalent to their percentages in society, I guess, that's racist, and that's not equitable. It's just not we need to have equity in outcomes. So sometimes what that causes is curriculum changes where you make the curriculum the same for everyone to make it easy for everyone as you decide. And that's people, progressives, deciding that Black children can't do as well as white kids. And I don't accept that. I have a program that gets Black youth ready for educational success. So clearly I don't believe in that, but that's a definition you need to know. Here's a little quick history of CRT. Critical race theory was taught in Ivy League law schools first in the 70s and 80s. It has its roots in Marxism and Black liberation theology. It's just only there was economic oppressed and oppressors. This is race. This is critical race theory. It was called critical theory then. Masters of education programs in the 90s went into it. It entered into government and large corporation culture in 2001 through now. And accelerated in the mid 2020 and in K through 12 in college education. During the pandemic, it was put into curriculums. A lot of our parents saw it getting into curriculum then. It's created a controversy across the country too. And I call that the Floyd effect, and because they felt that right there was a good time to do it. And so a lot of parents have pulled kids out of school because of that. It turns out, you've heard some of the things back east in Fairfax and Virginia over this. Again, the idea of an oppressor versus oppressed sociology is typically anti-Christianity, anti-religion. It's now being introduced in public school classrooms in LA and California, and actually right here in Los Angeles and Long Beach. There have been some humanities classes and English classes that have already been changed. And now we're seeing a lot of proposed math changes to do equity math. And that's going to be where they emphasize the equity, keeping everybody the same. And a lot of these advanced math classes could be in danger because they would think that it's not fair that others can take them and Black students aren't predominantly in those. But actually, there's more and more doing it. And I come across a lot of students that can do AP classes and do well. So it's a good time to talk about why are you going to college? I think I covered these before, but I'm going to cover them real quick here. To freely exchange ideas with and learn from others, even people you don't agree with or dislike, I suppose. To get gainful employment and free from your family, to have your own family. To learn about and develop your gifts and talents, students, and sell them. So that's another definition of capitalism, isn't it? And then to learn how to create wealth for yourself and others, now get this, so that you can leave your house and take care of yourself. But notice, create wealth for yourself and others. That's right. You'll be able to help other people better because of the skills that you develop in college. Professors of these subjects are typically very, very openly left in their views. Women's, gender, African and Hispanic studies, women's studies, gender studies, there's some pretty left professors in there. Some of the students tell me there's some reasonable professors that do let them speak their mind, but most of them are very left in their views. Political science, English, anthropology, these are all other subjects where the professors are typically very left in their views. Economics, most times, you can occasionally find more moderate professors in economics, I think. Professors in these classes are very powerful and influential people. They have agendas. They're trying to get followers a lot of times. And I've seen students go to school as freshmen and drop out of school following after these professors and deciding they're going to be radical and extreme in their views. I had students go away to college, come back, and they don't like me anymore. They said I represent some kind of a patriarchy in society, and that didn't make me feel good, that I'm espousing and representing the white man's religion. That can't make me feel great. So professors of these classes can change your view of God, your parents, and even authority, and ultimately your behavior. And that's why I'm doing these, students, so you'll be aware of this and not let it happen to you. Okay. Anti-Christian teaching. Let's talk about top movements and ideologies on campus that will challenge your faith in God and family values. Anti-Christian teaching, you may hear that in your classes. I need you to be aware of that. Free speech policing, restricted speech zones, or restricted words. I think it's Berkeley that has 350 restricted words and phrases, things you can't say. If you say the only race that's important is the human race, you could get in trouble in Berkeley if your organization is having a meeting and that's said. There's rules for what you can say and not say. Pro-choice activism, defense of unrestricted abortion, big time, I talked about that. Anti-Christian regulation and management. So if you have a Bible study group in some schools, there are going to be rules on how you operate and regulations sometimes. For example, it was a time in CSU even that they wouldn't let the leaders of Christian groups hold their elections in such a way they only get Christians. Yeah, I mean, they let the swim club have the swimmer, the chess club have a chess person. Even the Muslim club could have only a Muslim leader. That was fine. But the Christian club had to throw it open to the whole campus. And that was totally unacceptable to students, Christian students at CSU at the time, and heard a lot about that. I think they've since have changed that. Radical fundamental Islamists. You might hear that in your class, some radical Islamic thinking. Transgender activism, that's pretty common on campus. Again, it's not about transgenderism because I think we as Christians should be tolerant and loving of everyone. But there's a way to tolerate but not approve. Activism comes up because teachers may tell you you have to attend a certain amount of transgender events if you're in gender studies, for example. And you may not want to go to those if it doesn't match with their religious beliefs, and the teacher will mark you down. I had a student last semester who came home and told me that last semester they were required to attend 2 of these kind of events, their teacher in their gender studies class. And I think it was women's studies, actually. I don't think it was gender studies. And they realized it was going to be 20% of their grade. And they decided not to do it and just worked really hard. And they got a 78 out of 80. They couldn't get any higher because they didn't want to attend those because of their beliefs. B was perfectly acceptable for that. Radical racial activism is huge too. Again, forcing you to go to events that you don't agree to. But sometimes that seem a little bit too extreme for you. But teachers will sometimes make it part of the course, make you look at certain films and videos. You need to be not shocked by that and ready for that. And remember, do your best. In fact, don't let it influence your family values and things that you learned were wrong or right, or wrong actually as a younger person in your house. Don't go to college and just totally change it all of a sudden. Remember, your goal in college is to graduate and get a job in 4 years or less. Keep focused on that You'll be able to deal with these movements and ideologies and put them into perspective and succeed in college. Here's 7 reasons to abstain from sex before marriage. I'm going to talk a little about relationships now. The odds that if you're having sexual interactions or have one soon, the person will not be your spouse. Those are the odds that if you're having a sexual interaction, it won't be your spouse. And that's really the concern here. Pregnancy can unacceptably alter your future. Now, I need my young ladies to know that, and guys too, because if you impregnate a young lady, you have a moral and ethical responsibility to take care of your child. And that will change your future. That will alter your decisions, what you can do. It better, if too many young men are running out on their responsibilities. STDs, including genital warts, herpes, etc., can ruin your future in relationships and life. Premarital sex creates women, again, we're talking about 7 reasons to abstain from sex before marriage. Premarital sex creates women who are unalterably bonded to a young man who is not ready for commitment or responsibility of a family. Okay? But then yet women are bonded in that situation. That's the way it works, and it's not a good thing. Number 5, it creates cynicism in young ladies about later men who are better and even good men. They won't recognize that because they've started out before marriage and having sex. It teaches and reinforces in young men that love begins with sex and that commitment is not necessary. Then 7, having sex with someone while in high school is placing many young men in difficult situations that cost them educational time. And what I'm referring to there is the stuff we talked about last week with violations of Title IX, and they might find themselves having charges of sexual assault and wrongfully charged or charged in a very ambiguous situation where they're in a relationship and there's been a misunderstanding. And I've seen 3 or 4 guys get put out of school or delayed in their graduation. And it's a very difficult thing to come back from if there's false charges or any kind of charges against a young man. Okay. Again, look at these reasons, these 7. None of them is a Bible verse. I could have given scripture on that, but again, I want to make sure I give logical reasons from my personal background. And of course, obviously, I've seen all of this in my 20 years of working with young men and young ladies in college. That's where these 7 came from. Why did God create sexuality is an excellent question, therefore. I'll run through that right now. I think it's a very important view graph. Number 1, it prepares you physically for your mate. Young people, I want to let you know that God is getting you ready for your mate. And so there's some physical things you're going to feel, physical attractions you're going to feel. It's getting you ready for your prospective mate one day. It doesn't mean you're to partake in it at all. It provides for emotional security for children within marriage. I tell the story, and it's a real part of my life, where as a young man, my parents didn't get along too well. And my dad and mom would argue. My father would leave the house and sometimes gone overnight, and he would stay with relatives, I later found. But I wanted my dad to come back home. I needed him home for security. And when he would come home, I would hear him come through the door. My bedroom was right above the front door. And I could hear him come in the house. He would walk up the steps slowly. There were 11 or 12 stairs. I remember it distinctly. And I would wonder, is he just going to check on me, check on my sisters and leave out again? Or was he going to stay? He'd come up and look in my room. I'd fake like I was asleep, And I guess my sisters did it too. I think one of them told me that later. But then I would wonder, is he going to turn left from my room and go into the bedroom with my mom and close the door? I didn't know enough to know whether they were doing anything there, but they were coming together. And children need to feel that their parents are coming together. There's a spiritual security that occurs within marriage that's specifically unique to bonding the relationship and bonding a man and a woman and bonding the family and marriage. And I can remember when he would go in there, I would feel so relieved. It motivates men's survival and family protection instinct. It motivates men because of that bond to protect and give their lives if they have to for their family. I know I'd do that for my wife. It provides for periodic renewal of the bond within a marriage context. It's renewal. If you become or are sexually active, your marriage is affected when you're finally married. Used to be a saying that every relationship you've had comes into your bedroom. So you have to think to the future young people and that future relationship that you're going to have. That was my take on why I created sexuality. Here's some questions young ladies should ask or about a guy or wonder. These are kind of rhetorical, but things you should notice, young ladies, in a guy. How does he act when he's angry? And by the way, I should stop and say, I was thinking about dating, but not specifically, because in college, I don't feel you should be really dating. You're too busy. It should be what I call interviewing. And these are kind of interview questions, but some of them are interview questions you can notice and you don't have to ask. I suppose I should do a separate video on what is interviewing versus dating and really talk about that. And I think I will do it very soon, certainly before you go to college, if you're in class of 2022. How does he act when he's angry? How does he treat his mom and sisters? What does he think and say about them? What time does he want to call you at night? Is he too physical? Will he leave if you stop? Such good questions to think about. Is he at your life level or above? You're a queen, I think I said. I always say, you are the queen. You don't want to go out with someone who's below the queen, do you? You're queen level. You expect the best from the young men you date. If you're a classy, clean, nice lady, you don't want to go out with some guy who's a scruff or off the street somewhere, or a scruff who's 1 second from the street anyway. Does he love God? Is it the same God you love? Think ahead. Now, again, I'm not espousing dating, but these are things you can do when you're interviewing in your mind. You're looking at prospective men you'll be with. Is he clean living and clean looking? Of course, is he on drugs and partying and all that? These are all questions that are intrinsic to this. For young men to consider, you don't need to be gratifying your sexual needs until you're married. It's the ultimate manhood to be able to delay the gratification of your sexual needs. That's what a real man is. A man is a person who can control himself. Wimps and boys can't control themselves. A man can, and in doing so, will save young women. That's what a man should be thinking about. It's not only you, it's the young lady who will want to have a physical relationship sometimes. And I need men who can say, this is not in our best interest. If you're going to one day be someone else's wife and raising someone else's child, or even you, especially if it's going to be yours. Only a wimp can't control themselves. Wimps and boys, that's where you get to the area of control when as you become a man, you're able to more control yourself. That's counterintuitive to what society, what young men may say to each other about sex. Love and commitment are separate from sexual attraction. That's a good thing for men to consider. Emotionally damaged ladies cannot be rescued. Just wait. We got to learn to wait as a society, but young men should wait. You can be friends to someone without thinking you have to rescue them. Watch for narcissistic traits. I should have said that with young women too. Watch out for young men who only think about themselves. Sometimes athletes are like that, right? They're very narcissistic. And I want young men to think about that. And narcissism is when everything revolves around you. It's a psychological condition, but it can't be cured. Some people just grow up and learn how to be that way. You can tell when people only think about themselves. And also, what does the young lady think about their father? What does young man think about the father? I should have said that over there. I think I did mention it, what they think about their mother for the young lady to look at. But I think young men should look at whether young ladies, what do they think about their father? If they're in a estranged relationship or don't like their father, you should notice that. That's something you want to consider if you're going to have a relationship in the future. Now, I'll actually come back to talking about this at the very end of the presentation when I talk about a timeline for relationships, and that's very important. Here it is right here, actually, I'm sorry. So there's a timeline for romantic relationships. If you look here, I have a pointer here, I believe. Yep. So the senior year in high school, you're interviewing. There's that interviewing word, right? And abstinence. Look all the way through the senior year of college, the last year of college is where you get the dating and it's abstinence. So dating really doesn't happen until late in the college experience. Certainly not right out of high school and not in high school. I know we think we're doing dating down here, but you shouldn't be dating. Dating is what you do when you're trying to figure out who you're going to marry. You're not marrying anyone until out here. So I think the last year of college is a good time to start thinking about dating. Then when you get set in your career, so you date all in here. When you get set in your career, I say here, marriage and lots of children. Well, children anyway. That was being a little coy there when I said that. And these internet relationships, I'm not high on those, ladies and gentlemen. Be careful about visits from the opposite sex. And I think most dorms don't allow you to visit with people in your dorm. You might want to get that straight with your roommates that you're not going to allow it. We talked about that last week, having a backbone. You want to bring some friends with you as chaperones if you insist on visiting with someone. Do it in a public place and bring your friends as chaperones. It's a good idea. I don't like the idea of doing that stuff. Look, I even say here, ladies, don't travel to meet guys. There's no need to do that. Control your net use if your grades are not elevated. Don't get into searching it on the internet. If your grades are not straight A's, you shouldn't be into that stuff. We do a little too much of social media already, and I sure hope that that's not going to be a primary way you get to meet people. Meet guys right on your campus or around the campus life of your cities. That's where your prospective mate may be, I guess. But again, you don't have to be dating until your last year of college. Now you follow the same timeline with all your relationships. I think that would be a good thing. Now I want to talk a little bit about, as we close, objections to the Christian concept of God. I wasn't going to cover this, but wow, a couple of the freshmen who came back and some from last year who were sophomores who came back said, wow, I'm so glad you covered how to talk about why I believe in God. So I'm gonna give you a little bit about how to talk about it and how to think about it. And again, if you're not, a believer, this won't fit with you a lot. You can skip it, but I think these are some sound, rational things that we all should think about. Because most of it is totally right. I have a little bit of scripture, not much. In fact, I thought it was important to do this section without scriptures. Here's what non-believers object to about the Christian concept of God. Religion is a crutch for the weak, they say. Science makes God unnecessary. I'm going to talk about each one of these in a minute. There can't be just one way to God. Many Christians have done horrible things. I don't know, a lot of us probably heard that. That's a way what people will say when they don't want to, believe there is a God. And I think it's one of our elders that says that these 5 things are here. Here's number 5. A loving God will not allow evil or send people to hell. Why is there so much evil in the world if there's a God? It's funny how people never say when there's a lot of good, wow, that's proof there is God. Those same people would never say that when there's good things that occur, but it's only when there's evil they want to then talk about, why would God allow it? And I'll talk about those in a minute. But before I do that, I do need to say that on these 5, many of us believe that a lot of people just object to the idea of having to be accountable to God. So they want to really object to the concept of God. But we all need to be accountable in one way or another, and accountable to God, those of us who believe which way is better. Let's look at the responses to those objections. The real issue is not whether religion can be a crutch, okay, but whether Christianity is true and if God exists. Let's get back on the subject. That's kind of off the subject to say religion can be a crutch. It's not about religion. It's whether Christianity is true, and if God exists. That's if we stay there logically, I think that's the way to answer that. That's the way I think about that. And a lot of students love these answers because it's not that you're trying to prove God exists or be right. You're never trying to win an argument. You just want to make sure they know how you're thinking, and people respect you if you can respond with clarity of thought. Number two, about the science thing, many scientific conclusions point to a creator, whether it's the Big Bang or the magnetic theories or all the many things we see on the earth we'll talk about in a minute. And then about it being, if you go back to 3 over here, there can't be just one way to God. Contradictory religious claims cannot all be true. So the idea is that somebody is going to be right, somebody's not going to be right, but that's not important. Again, you're just trying to show kind of, hey, you might know people, why me? Why are you attacking the Christian concept of God? There's a lot of different concepts of God. Make sure they know that. And they might not have any problem with those. They usually don't. It's just uniquely Christianity. Bad behavior is evidence of human sinfulness. That's right. So the fact that there's believers that are not living right and are doing things that are wrong, it just proves that there's sinfulness, and that Christians have to be just as concerned about it as non-believers, or people who believe in God as non-believing in God. Bad behavior in and of itself is not an evidence that God does not exist. Evil and hell are the consequence of human choices. People ask, well, why is there hell? Why is it evil? You know, why? Well, evil and hell are consequences of human choices. We talked about sinfulness in the last one, but just humans make choices, and they're not always the proper ones because they have a free will. You know, God didn't want to create a bunch of, 9 billion robots or 8 billion robots. He created people that have the free will of how to live their lives. That's how much he loves humanity, in my opinion. Let's talk about the Bible and God's existence. I'm just going to hit that. Here's your scriptural proof for the existence of God. God's existence without proof, Genesis 1:1. Foolish to deny God's existence, inner sense of God's reality. So there's plenty of scriptural basis, but I didn't want to dwell on that because that's not the point here. The point is the rational and logical arguments for the existence of God. Listen closely to these. Causation is the cosmological argument. Everything in the universe has a cause. Therefore, the universe itself must have something that caused it. Even if you think there's multiverses, who created the multiverse? That's why I think like even the Big Bang, who caused the Big Bang? You might say, well, it just happened. Well, nothing just happens. Something had to have caused it. So that's an argument for the existence of a higher authority, higher power, or at least, if not God. Order is the teleological argument. The harmony, order, complexity, and precision of the universe suggest a rational designer. I have so many examples of this. Why do the birds always fly back to the same place? Why is it that we can't explain how DNA works, but we can see evidence that it works? Why are we at the place our planet is in the place it is in the galaxy, in a place where there's not been any gamma rays or harmful asteroids for such a long period? Why do we have the largest moon that we've discovered in the over 10,000 solar systems we've explored now, not just our own? Because now we can see other solar systems, and we found out there that our solar system is so unique. They all have mostly gas giants, the 90% of the ones we've seen that are close to the middle, and not many rocky planets at all. In our solar system, the rocky planets are closest to the sun, and the big gas giants protect them from asteroids. There's a harmony, there's an order, there's a complexity and a precision in the universe that suggests something rational is going on. I often ask people, this is where you get into talking about creation and how humans get to be, but I won't do that here. But if you can imagine seeing the most disordered junkyard in the world, can you suggest that just randomly out of nowhere it became something organized like a computer store or a building? Or did we really go from terribly disorganized to order without any rational designer at all? Being is the ontological argument, right? Our ability to imagine God implies he exists, that we can even consider and imagine God. Morality. There must be some source to our sense of right or wrong, even if, some people say, well, I don't know how that, well, you could be agnostic. At least agnostic is more honest to it, but to say that the sense of right and wrong just is something that's created, that's just in you automatically. Why is that? And why is it that there's a sense of what's right and wrong that's just there? Even though I don't believe I don't believe people are born, morally right and perfect. I mean, everybody is born with imperfection, and man he's not born evil, but he's not born totally right either. So, but there's this innate sense of right and wrong, though, that's there. And that's a logical argument for the existence of God. Any one of these, if it rings with you and you're not a believer in God, well, you have to say these are strong, rational arguments. And, that maybe that you should think about these as it turns out, but those are the rational, logical positions. So the 7 arguments, to summarize again, for the existence of God are the existence of the universe, the beginning of the universe, if you listen carefully to me, an argument from intelligent design. Remember, I talked about that. An argument from life, the intelligent life's origin. This is where we get into, well, how did human beings get there? Is it evolution or God? Or, even if you believe that God is behind evolution, you still put God in it. And again, the complexity of the human body alone is something that needs discussion in determining the existence of God. Argument for morality and knowledge of good and evil, we did. Argument from the Bible, and an argument from the historicity of Jesus. I didn't do that today, but there are historians that have agreed, yeah, Jesus existed. There's a lot of proof that he did exist, and proof that he did some of the things that we see in our Gospels. So there is a historicity that I did not cover today, but it's a part of all this. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about the life confirmation ceremony that we're going to have. We're going to have it right now. It's scheduled for June 25th, although make sure you watch your email. We may want to change that to give it a time we can be in person and have the right security and parking. That's what really we have to worry about. So why the ceremony? Okay, it's a time when the village or EEP can honor your youth for their achievement and pray blessing onto them. It's reminiscent of the Afrocentric rites of passage, which is a big part of our program history. In other words, you gave us a young man or a young woman, and we give you back a man or a woman. That's part of that old rites of passage that we had in Africa. And also in other societies. I understand they have the same in some of the Central America and South Americans. A lot of societies have a rite of passage. And so this life confirmation ceremony is reminiscent of that. The ceremony is at the end of the actual program we're going to have. And the program is relatively short. Okay. But during the program, the following will occur. Youth are presented officially during the processional end. Youth can present their life mission statements. I'm going to talk about those in a minute. Some youth are invited to ask to display their talents. Youth will hear a motivational speech. We'll have someone there to speak. Students who have attended the program on a regular basis and also attend the ceremony will get priority treatment for career and college retention support while on the campus. Absolutely. We're going to pay attention to those who go all the way through the ceremony as much, probably a little more than others, because we want to make sure that God really blesses you for your faithfulness. But we're building up our alumni programs anyway. I think you'll still benefit from it in some way if you're involved in our program. We're also going to give out at the ceremony our scholarship awards for participation sponsorships, I should say. And we're going to give our main sponsorships after that event. We have some minor ones for participation in these sessions. It's really a very wonderful event. Our ceremony is on June 25th. Youth should dress formally, but not like a prom. Please do not purchase new clothing. What we need from the youth is going to be a life mission statement that I'll describe in a moment of 2 to 3 sentences. Sometimes one sentence you could do. It depends on how you write it. We're going to have special awards for those mission statements that day. 5x7 pictures, well, you don't have to be 5x7. It could be a digital picture. We need a picture. We like to have it of you in your cap and gown. That would be nice to have that way. We're going to post the pictures and roll it on screen that day. That'd be pretty cool. We'll give you deadlines for that very shortly. Donation of $35 per family is requested, if you can, for refreshments and program support. Let's talk about the mission statement as we close. Let's look at some companies' mission statements. Target's mission statement says, Target store, our mission is to make Target your preferred shopping destination in all channels by delivering outstanding value, continuous innovation, and exceptional guest experiences by consistently fulfilling our expect more, pay less promise. It's a little long, but you get an idea of what a mission statement is. Here's Google's, a little much shorter. Organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So those are two company missions. And remember, you're going to have your own mission statement. Look at Jesus's mission statement. It's really here in verse 18. You can read around here and see the circumstances around it. But here it is right here. Jesus spoke these words about his mission. And it's interesting what's not here. He didn't mention here that he's going to die on the cross and rise from the dead. We know that's something that he did that was important. But this is how he describes what he's doing while he's on earth. How's that? The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, or on me, because he has anointed me to what? Proclaim good news to the poor. Okay. He has set me to proclaim freedom from the prisoners and recovery of sight to the blind. What a mission. Hey, by the way, the thing to remember is there's some people who have 20/20 vision but are blind. Keep that in mind. To set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. So this is Jesus's mission statement here, you could say, okay? So Target has a mission statement, Google has a mission statement, Jesus has a mission statement, and you need a mission statement. So please form a mission statement by the 23rd. That'd be great. We'll give you the actual due dates. I say Monday, June 11th, but that's not true. We'll receive them the Monday before the ceremony. We'll have these dates really for you before you go, okay? Tips for writing your mission statement. It's 2 to 3 sentence maximum. The due date was set as short term on purpose. It's what bothers you about the world is the clue what you're going to write. Some of you might have writer's block. So these questions are to help you with that. What would you like to fix about what bothers you in the world, right? That could be a clue. Sometimes your major is a clue, but it is not your mission. Your major is not your mission. Your career may not be your mission, although it could be. That could be a clue, right? What parts of Jesus's mission statement fit with you? Maybe you look back at that. What career interests you? I mentioned that a moment ago. Do not tell why you want a certain major. Don't do that. Well, I want to major in engineering, but that's not a mission. What jobs did you have in mind? These are all questions that will help you to develop your mission statement. All right. Well, I want to thank you very much for attending today or seeing this video if you're seeing it. I really appreciate you coming and hearing what we had to say. Again, put your comment before you leave down in the screen below you. I welcome all comments or questions. If you want a copy of this presentation, just email us and we'll be glad to get that to you, or go to our website, send us a comment. Our website is www. As a matter of fact, just email me, that'd be great, at holythinkers@gmail.com. You holythinkers@gmail.com. I'll be glad to send you a presentation of what you saw today, okay? Or just ask us down in the comment below. I hope you do put comments there to tell us that you've seen this video so we can give you credit for seeing it. God bless you all. Thank you very much.